can you tell this committee about actual Jim Crow laws? How do they operate?
Sure. So I have to say, when I hear people like the President of the United States throw around the notion of cleaning up our elections by saying it's a new Jim Crow, it's offensive to the real thing. It's like people claiming racism as an excuse when there isn't racism to accomplish other goals also diminishes occurrences of actual racism. Look, I'm a Virginian. I brought parts of the 1902 Virginia Constitution with me. Article 2, and I'd urge the committee to accept this as part of the record of real Jim Crow laws. Article 2 is about the franchise, poll taxes, property requirements, literacy requirements, end runs around literacy requirements so whites could get access to the vote where blacks would not. For instance, it allows those who were active in war for either the United States or Confederate states to be registered to vote regardless of all the other tests, or a son of such person. That's called a grandfather clause. Other places they do the grandfather. And let me read to you the spirit of this Constitution in Article 9. This is section 140. I'm going to read the whole thing. White and colored children shall not be taught in the same school, period. That's what's going on in the 1902 Virginia Constitution. That's Jim Crow laws. I brought with me a 6-page test from 58 in Georgia. You had to pass this test to register to vote. I was the head of USCIS. We gave citizenship tests for people to become new citizens. They're a cakewalk next to this. I wonder if anybody on this committee could name every judge in the judicial circuit you live in. I can't, and I was the Attorney General. That's one of the questions on here. I'd submit this for your record as well. This is a real Jim Crow impediment to people registering to vote. It's both a literacy bar and these kinds of tests. The Virginia Constitution includes tests like that. You can find this in California, Connecticut, Delaware. These are real Jim Crow laws.
And Mr. Cuccinelli, which party wrote the Jim Crow laws?
Almost universally written by the Democrat Party and one-party control, certainly in Virginia and across the South.
Which party enforced the Jim Crow laws?
The Democrat Party universally.
Which party's elected officials benefited from the Jim Crow laws?
The one-party control was maintained for decades and decades by the Democrat Party.
And Jim Crow laws were designed to keep politicians from which party in office?
The Democrat Party.
So today, Democrats are at it again. Among other things, they are advocating subjecting every state election law to be able to be vetoed by an unelected bureaucrat at the Department of Justice. If an unelected bureaucrat at the Department of Justice can veto, say, a voter ID law that is adopted by the state legislature that is elected by the voters, is that respecting democracy? Is that protecting the right to vote?
No, it's undermining democracy.
And how is it undermining democracy?
Well, when the will of the people, as expressed through their elected representatives, make policy choices in their sovereign state, and a federal bureaucrat rolls in with the power to undo that entire process, you are vetoing, by an unelected person, the results and the will of the elected representatives in that state. That undermines democracy, and it makes elections less useful to the people.
Well, and it's impossible to miss why it is that Democrats want to give unelected bureaucrats in the Department of Justice veto power over every state legislature in America. Because those unelected bureaucrats are not just principled, nonpartisan paragons of virtue. Instead, they are hard, radical leftist activists. In 2013, the Department of Justice Inspector General issued a scathing report detailing the politicization of the Civil Rights Division. The report criticized the voting section of that division for ignoring the resumes of qualified attorneys and hiring a majority of lawyers from only 5 left-wing advocacy organizations, including the ACLU, La Raza, and the NAACP. Moreover, at a recent hearing in the House, a former lawyer in that division, Maureen Reardon, testified just how political that division was. She said she was shocked at how political the conduct of the lawyers were, and some of the dishonesty that Ms. Reardon testified to, as she said, even after a court sanctioned the DOJ voting section with $594,000 for collusive misconduct with ACLU organizations.
All of the people, as expressed through their elected representatives, make policy choices in their sovereign state, and a federal bureaucrat rolls in with the power to undo that entire process. You are vetoing, by an unelected person, the results and the will of the elected representatives in that state. That undermines democracy, and it makes elections less useful to the people.
Well, and it's impossible to miss why it is that Democrats want to give unelected bureaucrats in the Department of Justice veto power over every state legislature in America. Because those unelected bureaucrats are not just principled, nonpartisan paragons of virtue. Instead, they are hard, radical leftist activists. In 2013, the Department of Justice Inspector General issued a scathing report detailing the politicization of the Civil Rights Division. The report criticized the voting section of that division for ignoring the resumes of qualified attorneys and hiring a majority of lawyers from only 5 left-wing advocacy organizations, including the ACLU, La Raza, and the NAACP. Moreover, at a recent hearing in the House, a former lawyer in that division, Maureen Reardon, testified just how political that division was. She said she was shocked at how political the conduct of the lawyers were. And some of the dishonesty that Ms. Reardon testified to is she said even after a court sanctioned the DOJ voting section with $594,000 for collusive misconduct with ACLU organizations, Ms. Reardon was urged to continue to strategize with the ACLU and other leftist organizations. Now, Mr. Nobile, you worked in this section. Is that consistent with your experience?
That is.
Can you describe the politicization that you saw when you worked in the Department of Justice?
Well, mind you, I left there in 2012, 2012, but I was there during the time that was relevant to the OIG report. When the report came out, it was retrospective. But virtually everything in that report I can corroborate and saw. I mean, I know Maureen. I haven't talked to her until recently when she's gone out into private practice, and I respect Maureen, and everything she says, I watched her testimony, and I believe everything Maureen said. Yeah, I mean, the staff has a way of sorting out people's political views. I mean, I don't know the people that have been hired since I left, but I have a hard time imagining that anything has been able to change. It's the culture of a locker room, so to speak, and it's tough to change that. And so it's pretty consistent with the OIG report.
Today's hard left is opposed to voter ID laws. If Democrats succeeded in giving unelected bureaucrats at DOJ veto power over voter ID laws, would any state in the country be able to pass a voter ID law?
No.
All right, final question, Mr. Cuccinelli. Senator Klobuchar and one of the Democratic witnesses said that if the Corrupt Politicians Act were passed into law, that no illegal aliens would be registered to vote. Is that remotely credible, and if not, why?
No, it's not. And the terms of the bill, the draft bill, clearly not only would register millions of non-citizens, including illegal aliens, because they get into state databases, and that's not nefarious. States interact with the people that live in their states.
So like illegal aliens have driver's licenses in a lot
They
of
do,
states.
in many states.
Millions of illegal aliens have driver's licenses.
Absolutely.
They'd all be automatically registered, or most of them would be automatically
Yes, and the bill doesn't say citizens. It says individuals in those databases. And I would further note, Senator, that there are other provisions. One, it criminalizes, and the chairman expressed his worry about using criminal statutes to intimidate. It intimidates state and local officials with new federal criminal penalties if they ask questions, vaguely worded, if they ask questions about filtering who should be.
Does it immunize state officials who register illegal aliens from liability for registering illegal aliens?
Not only that, it immunizes the illegal aliens from voting. There's no penalties. It removes penalties for anyone registered to vote this way from actually voting in elections, and thereby denying other Americans the quality of the vote that I've heard on a bipartisan basis here today everyone values.
And does allowing millions of illegal aliens to vote, does that protect the right to vote of American citizens?
It utterly undermines it.
Why?
Well, it cancels out millions of American votes on an unpredictable basis. You don't know how many this is going to affect in your state. I don't know in my state, but I do know that it will be an enormous number. And I can think, heck, I've won a recount race for my state legislature. I remember going all the way back to the first state race I voted in. Doug Wilder won by only 6,000 votes. And we've had Bob McDonnell won in a close race. Mark Herring, the current Attorney General of Virginia, won by a few hundred. The difference that would make in turning elections is enormous, and because it is unknowable, it would, in terms of the numbers, it would gut confidence of the American people in the outcomes of our elections.
Thank you.